pod. We'll do all the, the pleasantries and all that. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, especially if they're agreeing with our points. That will be greatly appreciated. If not, we'll also debate you in the comments as well. We love that. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other the audio platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All of that helps with the algorithms and getting out to more viewers and listeners and expanding the podcast. So yeah, it's greatly appreciated. All right, Lincoln, let's not mess about, man. Let's talk about the big topic. It's happened super, super quick. I thought when we were planning the podcast for this week, I thought, to be honest, I didn't think INEOS were going to pull the trigger and sack him in the first place. And then when that news broke, I think it was Ornstein dropped it first, and then Fabrizio tried to jump on it real quick afterwards. I thought we'll just talk about Ten Hag, and it was going to be the Ten Hag Memorial, but it's actually the Ten Hag Memorial, and also it looks like the Ruben Amorim incoming or welcome party. So let's get into the Ten Hag point first. I'll share my points after you, but we obviously haven't had you on the pod for a little bit. Do you think it's the right decision now to sack Ten Hag, or do you think we should have kept him for a bit longer, or do you agree with some people that think we should maybe have sacked him in the summer?
First of all, yeah. The first thing I would say is it is 100% the right decision. I don't really understand the narrative that because you've appointed him past the summer that you have to wait until the next summer. If he's the wrong manager, he's the wrong manager. Sack him. Be done with it. The thing that I will say is you should have done it already. But just because you made a mistake 3 months ago doesn't mean you have to keep making a mistake for the next 6 months. So that's where I'm at. It's like, yeah, because it's ridiculous, really. Because now Amorim's going to come in. It's almost a little bit too early to write off the season. You're already, there's 9 games in. There's still a lot of football to be played, but this is not Amorim's players. It's not. He doesn't have a preseason. It's kind of a free hit for him a little bit, but the thing is with United, the kind of the stress and the drama and the strife around the club makes it so that it might be very, very difficult. But I can't see past it being a bad decision. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. Our fan base is generally pretty toxic anyway. I feel like the whole birth of this podcast idea in the first place was around the idea that Arsenal and United fans are the most loudly heard on social media and have some of the wildest, most toxic opinions, and we like to banter each other and stuff. But I have to admit, this first month and a half of this season has been a new low point for toxicity in the United fan base. Ten Hag inners versus Ten Hag outers, people cussing each other about eating biryani, all kinds of crazy stuff's going on, and it's a new low, bro. I thought them AFTV days was like the bottom of the barrel, but I don't know. We may have overtaken it. So I think that is a reflection of where we are. Obviously, we're sitting in 14th, so I can't argue with anyone that says this had to be done. And I can't argue with anyone that says we should have done it in the summer. I think with hindsight, and some people might say you shouldn't have needed hindsight, we finished 8th, minus goal difference, salvaged the season with an FA Cup win, where we also could have lost and gone out to Coventry after being 3-0 up. There were signs. We can't act like there hasn't been signs that this was the right decision. But I'm just of that old school opinion. You got to try and hold on for as long as possible. And when you have sprouts or shoots of positivity in there, even if they are covered in just acres of weeds, you still got to look for them and try and give it the best shot you can, give it the most time you can. But yeah, it was obvious. I think probably even 3 or 4 weeks ago, I said on the pod, I can't even try and fight against the Ten Hag outers. I don't really like getting into the in and out stuff, but I can't disagree with them when they say, what the hell are we doing? He's not getting the best out of the players. He's talking absolute rubbish in the press conferences. Stick to the plan, stick to the plan. There's got to be some sort of emotional intelligence to understand when you keep losing games, you can't continually find excuses and point to, I don't know, the idea that he needs more time or he needs more players or we've had injuries. We're in the 3rd season. I don't think you can,
Yeah.
that those excuses can cut it anymore. So I agree with you, bro. I think the decision's 100% right. I also think, with hindsight, probably should have done it in the summer. But I totally, again, agree with you that just because you didn't do it in the summer, you don't have to be stubborn and go, we're going to hold on until the whole end of the season. We're in 14th, bro. We're in 14th.
I mean, to be honest, there is a part of me that thinks that INEOS, like the kind of the conspiracy brain part of my brain, that, to be honest, as an Arsenal fan, has been buzzing. That little groove in my brain that says everyone's against you. That's just super. that is starting to buzz. But I do think for United, I think INEOS played this actually really, really cleverly. They looked at the beginning of the season. They couldn't see a manager, even though they knew that Ten Hag is not the option long term. I think that's perfectly clear. They knew that Ten Hag, because they were looking for another manager.
Yeah, it was obvious.
But it was obvious. So I think they kind of saw the kind of lay of the land. They've been doing the due diligence behind the scenes in the last 3 months or so, and they've identified Amorim, and they knew that eventually things would probably get so bad that, you know, it would be useful to throw Ten Hag under the bus. That he was a useful idiot. I thought, personally, it would be until at least we get to like December, January, and the kind of the fixtures start piling up, and then you can kind of say, look, this guy can't cut it, and we'll get someone else in. And you know, while this is happening, you know, INEOS has distance from it. No one can kind of criticize them, but now they can say, look, that wasn't our guy. This is our guy. The guy we're bringing in now. Oh, that was in the past. Like, oh yeah, we tried our best. So I do think it was like kind of INEOS have played a blinder here in terms of how things have gone. They also haven't had the best press with like, you know, kind of all of the kind of austerity stuff that they're doing.
Sal's out. He's at Celtic watching games instead of watching United games.
Yeah, people have to eat their lunches in the toilet and stuff, and tea ladies getting fired. Like, this is not good press. But if you get rid of Ten Hag, all of that can kind of fade into the background. And like, now you've got a shiny new toy, a handsome new manager, all the way from Portugal.
He's got hair, bro. You know what? I'm so glad I'm out of this like bald manager bloody rivalry that everyone's got a bald manager. My bald manager's better than yours. Like, finally, we've got a manager with hair again. He's got, like you said, nice beard. He's out here in his own lane. You know what I mean? There's not too many managers with hair and beards.
Let me just say something. You know, it's very important that your manager makes an effort. He doesn't have to be good looking, but he just has to make an effort.
Yeah,
what was one of the first things that Klopp did when he came to Liverpool?
Oh, he had to go up. Remember? Man, got his hair done, his teeth done,
all of that. Like, this is important to people because it shows that you care. You don't want to have your manager out there looking clapped. Like, that's not what anyone wants.
No, I hear you, man. It's true, and I think it's there's elements of that. That's I still remember that TalkSport thing. Was it Simon Jordan or something that was absolutely gunning Ten Hag in his first few weeks for saying his suit was too big and it didn't fit him, and he looked like he's like wasn't able to fill his suit, and it just talking about his appearance completely. And at the time, I was like, "Come on, bro, stop talking shit. That's got nothing to do with a manager's abilities." But at the same time, I think what became really obvious, and this is why last week I was twerking for Thomas Frank, bro. It was a new low as well on the fan base, and it's because there was like he's got some sort of charisma. He's very obvious that they can communicate really well, and I think that was key for a manager. I'm beyond the tactico hype of, you know, who can move the little chessboard pieces on the whiteboard to wherever. I don't care about that at this point. All managers have coaches and setups and whatever that have that tactical nous. There are very few managers these days that have no tactical knowledge whatsoever and are just going out and giving back rubs and saying, "Go on, lads, good luck." You know, maybe Southgate only. But the most important thing that we lacked, I think, with Ten Hag was the charisma, the communication skills, and the ability to motivate a group of players. Because let's be real, right? When you're at a top club, it's fine margins. A lot of these players are of a similar level in terms of their ability and their skill set. You need to try and maximize what you can get out of them and squeeze the most juice out of them. And it's very obvious that Ten Hag has not done that. and at points he's actually wasted a lot of the talent that we have. And so, yeah, it is a good sign when I'm watching all these comps and videos, even press conferences of Amorim. Our fans are absolutely going, crazy with their excitement about it. But it's like there are little bits which already give me a different feeling to Ten Hag. It feels like he's got a better grasp of the language. It feels, again, like you said, his appearance, he's like takes care of himself. He's trying to make a good impression. And then hearing him talk about certain things, both in English and Portuguese, it seems like he's got that charisma that you need to try and lead a team in modern football. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. And to be honest, I didn't think we would go for him when I was looking at the options that the bookies were touting us to go for. I didn't even think Amorim was. I was hoping we'd go for someone like that, but I honestly thought we would root Van Nistelrooy until the end of the season, and then maybe try and get an Amorim or a Nagelsmann or someone of that ilk, and then see where we land. Because it's still possible they reject us and we end up doing a Tottenham and go down fifth or sixth on the list and get someone like a Thomas Frank. But I'm surprised, man. I'm pleasantly surprised. But I agree with you. Jokes aside, it is important to have a manager that has those soft skills beyond just being a football man. And I kind of overlooked that a little bit, because you go the fist pump hype with Klopp and all that kind of stuff. But there is an element of that is really true, like inspiring the players and inspiring the fan base. And clearly Ten Hag failed, not only tactically, right, with the way that we've been playing and being exposed by rubbish teams. Let's be honest. We'll get to the West Ham game in a bit, but West Ham are stinking it up, and still somehow they managed to beat us. But then also just in press conferences talking madness and clearly falling out with players constantly.
Yeah,
it was not sustainable. We had to move on. Yeah. And what do you think about Amorim? First of all, have you caught much of his sporting team? Obviously, they played Arsenal a few seasons back, but apart from that, have you seen much of him? And how highly do you rate him?
I have to be honest, I've got very little experience. Beyond the 60 games that I watch of Arsenal and the other 50 that I watch of Manchester City, I don't really watch much Portuguese football.
Yeah,
I do know. I did hear something quite interesting though, that he kind of, it was really interesting. Someone made a nice parallel, which was that he's coming in. He's in Portugal. Portugal have two giants, and that's Benfica and Porto, and he's kind of coming as a kind of dominated with the third club, Sporting Lisbon. They're not kind of like natural champions the way that Benfica and Porto are. And he's kind of broken that duopoly. And that reminds me of a different manager who once upon a time was also stuck in a league with a duopoly. And he came in and he broke that. That's obviously Sir Alex with Aberdeen. So there is kind of precedence for this, kind of nice little symmetries. The thing that I will say is a lot of people talk about, this how United fans are so happy, basically just like, we'll take anyone. This is a big opportunity for this guy. This is a really big opportunity to come in and, there's an argument, and I'd ask you a question of you maybe after this. Do you think, when Arteta came in for Arsenal, who do you think is lower? Do you think Arsenal was at a lower place than United are now? Or do you think United are at a lower place than Arsenal were back in the day when Arteta came in? That's an open question. I think Amorim's going to come in, like, look, man, anything. Make them good contenders again, top four. Get them playing good football. Get something out of some of the younger players. Move some of those older players along. Whatever you do, you've got a blank canvas and you've got a really big chance of doing really, really well here. United will spend money. They always spend money. The other thing that I've also heard, of course, is that he prefers to play a back three, which is why Liverpool didn't go in for him.
Yeah.
Man, that United team, the defenders might be set up for a back three, but I don't know if they have the legs to run it. So that's another issue. But, get the guy in, build a team around him, give him a couple of seasons. And who knows? It can happen really quickly. That's what I've learned with Arsenal recently.
Yeah. I mean, you started that you've setting up setting us up for failure, even slightly, barely hinting at a Alex Ferguson type background. I'm like,
you got a dream.
Yikes.
It makes
Come on,
sense.
bro.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
And I was thinking, who are you talking about then for a minute? I was thinking, nah, Klopp was Dortmund. They were in the duopoly. Oh, nah, Mourinho. Yeah, Porto were one of the duopoly. Who are you talking about? And then you drop this Alex, and I'm like, oh no. Like, our fans are going to do that already. We don't need rival fans already gassing 100%. It up. But you know what? I obviously haven't seen too much of him either. I'll be real. I'm not going to lie about it. But I've seen Sporting play a few times when they've played English teams in the Champions League or Europa League. And they look good. But, I mean, it's too small of a sample size to really take that and then say that's like, you know, how they played week in, week out. I believe they got spanked by PSV the other week in the Champions League recently. So, you know, they're not a perfect team. They still kind of are what they are. Like you said, kind of a third wheel in the Portuguese league, trying to break up the dominance of Benfica and Porto. I think it was 19 years or 20 years or something they hadn't won a title. And then there was that kind of Klopp, Liverpool slander where they won it during COVID or something without fans. And then everyone said they couldn't do it again. And they went on and won it last season. So, yeah, obviously it's good to get a manager who's got some sort of pedigree like that. But again, I like the comparison you made to Arteta, and I will answer that question. But first of all, I think they are kind of similar. Maybe Amorim has slightly more experience because he's had the couple of years at Sporting, but he's still really young. I still think he's in his 30s, right? Yeah. So he's still really inexperienced, and he's never taken on a job of this size. So there are parallels in that perspective. But weirdly enough, I think we've got better players now than you guys had when Arteta took over. I think you had loads of bums when he took over, I'll be real. I don't think your league position was as low as we've been. It was probably, I can't remember where Emery had you, but I don't think it was as perilous as 14th. But I do know it wasn't the greatest start to that second season. And that's the reason why he got booted. But I think it was more...
No, I would say, sorry, and I think that we were actually at one point, because I remember Roy Keane making jokes about us being relegated or something. So I think we were at the very least bottom half.
Maybe. I can't really remember that I feel like that Emery second season just like it just fast forwarded when the vibe got bad, like it all just like mushed up into one, and before you know it, he was gone and Arteta was in. So I kind of can't even remember where you guys were, but I don't know, it just didn't feel as bad as it does now. But obviously United's my team, so I'll probably feel it worse. But I think you had worse players for sure. I don't actually think our players are that bad. And we've obviously had the turnover of players under Ten Hag. I think probably a more similar or kind of apples for apples comparison is when Ralph Ragnick left and Ten Hag took over. I think our squad was in a similar position to your squad at that time then. We had so many, players that were running down contracts, and I think Phil Jones was still there, and Pogba and Martial, and a bunch of players that we have been trying to get rid of. So I think now coming in, Amorim's got a better squad to work with, and he's probably, from a defensive perspective, I think has got the right number of centre-backs, first of all, to play his back three. You've got 6 centre-backs, so who knows? There's some conspiracy theorists out there that are saying we kind of built the squad with the idea that at some point we needed to sack Ten Hag and Amorim was our number one choice, which from that planning perspective would make kind of sense because we got Euro and De Ligt in the summer when we already had 4 centre-backs. So, that could be true, or there could be some truth in it. But I agree with you in the midfield. I don't think we've got the right players to carry out what he needs or what he asks for his 2-man midfield pivot. Like, you need people with engines. And Ugarte may have that, but I'll be honest, I've been unimpressed by him so far. And he hasn't looked quite as strong and powerful as I thought he would be. But who knows? Maybe he's not up to speed yet, and we'll see that over time. And I'll say, as much as I love him, Kobbie's not got legs. So that throws into doubt whether or not, he will fit that system, or, kind of how he's going to work under Amorim if he plays the same way. So yeah, there are problems, but I do think it will probably take less work than we've needed under previous managers recently. I think we've kind of undergone the big facelifts like 7 and 8 man summers where we've bought loads of players in the last couple of years. So he'll probably want a few man in, but I don't think it will be that drastic. And yeah, I'm excited, man. There's a part of it like going back into the unknown again and not really knowing too much about a manager, and just kind of seeing where you shake out. And eventually, you got to hope that these rolls of the dice, one of them's going to come out with the number that we're looking for. But I'm going to back him like I back Ten Hag, and hopefully, I think the big thing is apart from charisma and all the soft skills, I hope he just sticks to his principles. Because I'll be honest, the first time the Ten Hag kind of alarm bell rang was when he was talking about not continuing his Ajax like kind of philosophy when he was at United, and how he has to change it and adapt to the club and the players and all that kind of stuff. And I think these days in modern football, your manager needs to be unrelenting in his idea and his philosophy. Tactically, he can be flexible, but you can't show outwardly to the public that you're so willing to abandon certain principles. And I think Ten Hag went really wrong with that. So I hope Amorim doesn't make the same mistakes.
That's interesting that you see it as a mistake. I think definitely it's a function of the dressing room that he inherited. Like you said, there were a bunch of people on really big contracts. He was clearly not the number one like personality in the dressing room. Okay, cool. There was the blood sacrifice. Like we got rid of Cristiano Ronaldo. But you know, you can't really. It was very difficult for him, I think, given who he was in the game and the stature of the players that he had in the dressing room, to come in and just say this is how you'll play. I don't think Amorim will have that problem. The age of the team is much younger, and the profile of the players aren't as big as when Ten Hag came in. So I think younger players, the players who are recently signed. It's not like, okay, Diego Dallo's fine, but like is Dallo like a United legend? I don't know. People
not after this weekend.
Yeah, we'll get to that. People aren't going to go to bat for him if he wants to throw half the squad out. Like no one's going to be upset, with the exception of maybe Kobe Mainoo or someone like that. So I do think he comes in at a really good time for him, and that's also my favorite thing when a new manager comes in is who's the first to go. I love that because every manager has to make an example. Maresca did it with Sterling. It's always a thing. You come in and there has to be a blood sacrifice. So I wonder who that's going to be at United.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fans are calling for the like Bruno or Rashford to kind of be one of those guys. I think there's 0% chance it's Bruno.
No,
you can't. It may be Rashford, and I think a lot of fans wouldn't be super upset about that. But in like you said, he might be able to get away with it by just saying, "Look, I don't play with the player that plays with the strengths that, or the attributes that Rashford has. Like I play a different system, and so he's got to go." So he may get out of it that way. And I think Rashford's probably got the lowest or the least cultural currency with the United fans as he's ever had. I think you'll probably see the least kind of negative response if he left now than let's say 2 years ago or 4 years ago or whenever, when he's kind of was being criticised previously. So I agree, man. It is interesting. We will see. And I just hope he gets more out of the players than we have been seeing this season. Because, the banter aside, we're not 14th. We're not the 14th best team in the league. There's no wild way we should be really outside the top 8. And that's being extremely kind. I think we should be in the top 6 and fighting for the top 4 when you look at how much money spent and the quality of the players that we have and the internationals and all this kind of stuff. I think there's no excuse to be below, the teams that we are. So let's hope for my sake Amorim turns the ship around. And like you said, they've pulled the trigger quick enough, I think, that we can't look and say that this season's written off. I've been tempted. I've kind of said it in anger when we've lost games. But the reality is 9 games in, you can't just sack it off now. He should have some expectation on this season. And hopefully, he can turn it around. But the Ten Hag era is over, man. Let's wrap up this section here then. Let's get into the United-West Ham game then. I just realised just now in our notes stock, I accidentally put 2-1 Man United. I guess that was the score I was hoping it to be. But it did finish West Ham 2, Man United 1. Crazy game, man. It was definitely a game of two halves. We absolutely peppered the living daylights out of them in that first half. Could have been 3 or 4-0 up. Garnacho is driving me nuts at the moment. He's so wasteful. It's unbelievable. He does so much like in a good way, and then he hasn't found his shooting boots properly this season. I feel like he's probably missed the most big chances. It feels like anyway, the most big chances in our game so far. Hits the bar with one, puts one wide when he really should have, got it on target. Bruno headed one over the bar. Dalot obviously with, contender of miss of the season, miss of the decade so far. Some conspiracies saying that Bruno and Dalot missed them on purpose to get him sacked. That's probably about the only way they get out of it, to be real, because that's
mad.
Shocking misses, bro. I'm pretty sure us two, five-a-side settings, not played for too long, not the fittest we've ever been, would tuck at least Dalot's one away. Like, maybe not Bruno's one, but Dalot's
Bruno's one was actually, I think that's an elite ability to even get into that position, like running full tilt.
I'd expect better of him though, man.
I'd expect him to hit the target because I'd expect him to do it because he's a good player. But I can understand the Bruno one, but the Dalot one is like that biggest belief. I don't know how you missed that.
It's unforgivable, bro.
He's like, there's an angle of it. I saw a video on social media that shows you the whole goal. It's like, it starts in midfield with like Casemiro nutmegging someone.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then like the build up, and it just like, it breaks beautifully. And the part that would infuriate me as a fan is he even steadies himself.
I know.
He does the right thing. He takes a breath. He lines it up, and he's just like, he misses it. It's like, that's the part that would infuriate me. It's one thing if you slash at it, you'd be like, oh, he's too rash. He needs to calm down. He did that, bro. He calmed down.
I know,
and he
bro.
Still missed it.
This is the thing. So on comms, they were saying he's taken the ball at the wrong point. Like, he didn't let it drop enough. But my point is, he actually did wait for it and compose himself. And then that's even more criminal. How do you wait, compose yourself, and still get the timing on it wrong and hit it at the wrong point? And second of all, it looks like he goes to like put it in the top corner. Like, what are you doing, broski? You've got an open goal. You just need to hit the target and it's a goal. Why are you trying to top bins it when you're clean through on goal? It's ridiculous. And Dalot is one where when the defender's in that position, and let's say, I don't know who's one of your least technically gifted defenders. I don't know, Kiwi or I don't know, someone like that. Yeah, is in that position. You go fair dues, or not fair dues. You're livid, but you're like, it's a defender. Yeah. It's a big guy. Maybe you can't tuck it. Dalot's got good technique, bro. We've seen him wrap goals in the top corner. He strikes the ball generally really well, and he's one of our more attacking defensive players. There's just no excuse, man. And I'll tell you what, in the group chat, I was losing my head because Dalot has been poor for like the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like, I don't think I've seen a good performance from him. And people go overboard with that. Last season he was up there with Ben White and Porro and all these guys. There was moments when I was flirting with, agreeing with that take. But this season has just shown me like he's a roller coaster player. He either plays really well and he's like bombing up and down and really effective both ends, or he does this kind of stuff where he's looks like he doesn't know how to coordinate his feet. And also like the goal came from his side as well. Like defensively, he's also been lacking. And in that second half, West Ham make the changes, and typical, they come back in the game. They obviously score through Somerville, and that's again where I'm gonna put it on Dalot. He's sleeping at the back post. He doesn't look over his shoulder, and it's kind of the reasons we were lambasting Wan-Bissaka back in the days as well, being like, you always used to get caught out the back post, not kind of getting his positional sense the right way. Dalot does the same, and they score. And yeah, sod's luck, we managed to equalise. I don't know if you saw the equaliser. Like, I'm livid at Xerxes as well. Like, he's been terrible as well since he's come in. Like, he goes to head that. He's put it like 5 yards wide, mate. And if Casemiro's not there to divert it, that's a shocking miss.
I thought it was a good header from Casemiro because that actually came quite quickly.
That was quick, yeah.
It was quick, and he's right under the bar. He can 8 times out of 10 I see players putting that over the bar because you have to like control it so quickly, and you have to get your head just right. Now, I to be honest with you, Dalot wasn't great, but I will also say Somerville was fantastic. He was. Really
he is good, man. He's a very good player.
That's the first time I've actually seen him And it's very funny to me that like West Ham unearth these kinds of players who are like, oh, this guy's got something,
They
and
bench
then
him. I don't understand it. Why are they
yeah,
benching him?
and he's on the he's on the bench. It's just like, dude, you're West Ham. I don't think you can afford to be benching players like this.
They do.
I think this guy needs to play.
And they go for Antonio up front and all these. It's one of the most baffling teams ever. West Ham. I'll never understand it. People are thinking Lopetegui comes in. He's not. He's a Spanish David Moyes, mate. He makes the same wild decisions ever. Get Somerville on, especially with Kudu's out. They needed something, and we can get got out. But yeah, he was great when he came on, and he was. I'm surprised he went to West Ham, to be honest. When Leeds went down, I thought someone bigger and maybe challenging for Champions League might take a look at him, like a Spurs or something like that. But yeah, he's a good player, man, and he caused us a lot of problems as soon as he came on.
He was very good.
Let's get to the penalty thing quickly, then, bro, because let's. I don't know about you. Is there anything else in the game to talk about? I mean, in that second half, the goals aside, it wasn't really eventful.
To be honest, I'll put up my stall and I'm saying this obviously as an Arsenal fan. Never a pen. Like, that's not a pen.
Thank God.
That's never a pen, my guy. Like, that was a nothingness. And in fact, okay, even if I accept that it was a penalty, the fact that the ref on the field said, not for me, there was not enough in the actual footage to overrule that. So let's say the ref says, oh, okay, cool, it's a pen. It's one of those where it's like kind of umpires calling cricket kind of thing. Like, oh, the ref blows the whistle. The guy's like, oh, have another look at that. And then he's like, you know what? There's not enough to overrule it. And they take the pen. You can accept that because he made the decision in real time. But to see it, say that's not a pen, go watch it again for a really long time. That's the part that was like, if you have to watch it for like 2 minutes, it's not clear anymore, is it?
No.
If you can't see it the first time, this is not clear anymore. So yeah, that was a bad decision. No good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in a certain sense. Well, I agree with you completely. Like, I think it was a call where the most shocking thing was the fact that it was overruled. Like, if it was given, I agree with you. I feel like the VAR would have just said, it's your call, mate. Yeah. Like, referee's call or whatever. Howard Webb went on, Stick to Football, and he was talking about the introduction of the referee's call and how that was a suggestion from their, like, ex-player panel to try and make sure they weren't re-reffing games. And you know what? At sometimes I curse it, but I understand the logic, and I do think you need to give the referees the power again to referee the matches, especially with 50-50 calls. I think you're going to screw people either way. At least let the referee own it and not re-ref it. So I was shocked. Honestly, I was shocked when it was recommended to go and look at the cameras, the monitors, because we know what that means. And someone said something really interesting on, I can't remember, it was maybe a football content creator, or I saw it on a thread on X or Twitter or whatever, talking about the power dynamics involved in this too. So you got that guy, David Coots or whatever his name is, right? He's not a super senior referee. He's made the decision that it's not a penalty. You've got Michael Oliver in the VAR room, a very senior referee, right? And he's recommending him, go and look at it on the monitor. Think about it in your workplace. If someone more senior than you suggests that you reverse a decision or do something else, there's immense pressure on you to actually do it against your better judgment, because he's more senior than you, or she's more senior than you, or whatever. And I'm 100% sure that's what happened, because you're right. He was at that screen for 2-3 minutes. You can tell he didn't want to change his mind. He didn't want to. And I'm sure he was hearing in his little stupid headpiece, like, I really recommend you do this, or have you considered this or that? And I think they've got it wrong. Now, 100% I agree with you. That was not a penalty, and I think I could accept it if the ref did make that decision. I would be livid, and I would say he got it wrong, but at least I would understand that the process seems to be following what we've been told is going to be the process. And I'll say, back to Ten Hag, probably for one of the last times on the pod this season, he did mention that in his post-match, and I understand why he was upset, because it is kind of like, why are you changing the process now in a game when you've used this process for every other game so far this season for the most part, and you've done it in the 90th minute to give away a penalty and really affect the outcome of the game? yeah, it was disgusting. It was a disgraceful way to end that game, and but I do think you've got to put some blame on the players because with the amount of chances we had in the first half,
Yeah,
we should have been 4-0 up going into that second half, or at least 3-0, and you don't lose that game from there. Even we would have a tough time doing that. But
yeah. I mean, this is what I call. This is just what I call a phrase I've coined that I've used with you before. This is narrative XG. When you, it's your
it's
NXG.
back.
When you miss chances in the first half against a team that you're better than, you fill up their NXG bar, and it just keeps filling up and filling up with every chance that you miss because they start thinking, "Oh, these guys can't score. These guys doesn't matter what we do. These guys can't score." And your players start thinking, "Oh man, it's just not our day." And just when it's that moment you start to think it's just not our day, that's when it starts to happen. That's when weird shit happens. The referee makes a weird decision. The ball bounces strange. There's a deflection. There's all sorts of weird stuff starts to happen in the Premier League, especially when things like that get so close, especially away from home. So yeah, it was a bad result, and it's really interesting. Like, you know, you're talking about the referee made a stinker. It's disgusting. It's cost West Ham. Sorry, it's cost United 3 points, but it's cost ultimately Ten Hag his job. If they draw there, you know, do they pull the trigger? Do they linger on?
They don't, bro. They definitely don't. We've seen it, and that's kind of why I think Ten Hag's extended this stay of execution for so long because he's just about got enough. And it is about the optics because I will agree with you. I've really struggled to understand like the strategy INEOS have taken around the management decision. But I think it's clear with hindsight again that what you said is true, and they've kind of just like, you know, put the rope out there and just let Ten Hag hang himself. But it just took an almighty long time. I think longer probably than they thought, because he just kept getting draws here and there and like just saving himself when, you know, the opportunity had opened up for them to pull the trigger. And it's kind of sad in a way that this game was one of the game that was the final nail in the coffin, because I do kind of agree with this analysis at the end of the game. I do think they got screwed. I do think they played generally pretty well for 60 minutes. And if they could just find their finishing boots, we would have absolutely battered West Ham. But that's the way it goes, man. Unfortunately, life catches up with you, and it's not always fair in the final moments. But you know, he's earned that firing for plenty of other games we've had where he's deserved to be fired. So it evens itself out, and in the end, I think the right thing happened. But last question on this game before we get to the Arsenal one: who do you think actually should take more blame for that defeat? Because that the same old narrative comes out and says it's the players. You need to get rid of the players. We've got all the players. You know, they're throwing the manager on the bus. Always comes out with us. Most of the time, it's been probably on point. Do you think that this time that's fair, or do you think the manager needs to take blame? Ultimately, Ten Hag is right to be sacked and be blamed for that defeat because he could have done something better. Who do you think should really cop the most flack for that loss?
I think in this instance, it's the players. I think if the manager sets you up in a way that you can fashion up basically 4 clear-cut opportunities, it felt like within like 20 minutes. I think that the manager's done his job in that instance. Now, you can say that when, you know, the situation is such that, you know, you go goal down, it's 1-1. You have to change it. You have to do something else. Yeah, maybe that's fair. Maybe it's fair. So I'll go back to what you said just before, which is I don't think if all you have is this game, I don't think Ten Hag deserves to be sacked. But he deserved to be sacked plenty of times before this. But you guys, like, what can you do? The guy, you know, your striker can't put the ball in the net. Guys missing open goals. You can't blame the coach for that. That's on the players. He's done his job. He's set them up well. He's created a formation where they can create chances. So yeah, for me, it was definitely the players in this one. And yeah, but yeah, now he goes. And fired into the sun like Team Rocket. They've sent him.
Man, bro,
What
I
can you
mean,
do?
I'm not going to feel too sorry for him. I've seen some people online feel super sorry for him. I also saw pictures of him flying in a private jet back to Amsterdam. So,
That
with
might be all
£15
right.
million in his pocket. So, I'm not going to cry that hard for him. But yeah, ultimately, I do agree with you as well. I think the players take the lion's share of the blame for this game because the coach can't go out there on the field and finish the chances for him. Can't physically stop the referee giving dodgy penalties out. But at the same time, second half, you could feel the tide turning. You could see
Mm,
Somerville have an impact. You could see their subs bringing them to life. You got to do something, right? And I think the best coaches also are able to react and recognize when things need to be altered. And I don't think he did. So he definitely deserves some blame. But yeah, it's the way of the world, isn't it? It's probably
yeah,
the time where he deserves the least blame is the time that is ended his managerial career at United. But
for
yeah,
sure, for sure.
2-1. We're in 14th. It's not looking good.